So there's a phrase among outdoorsy people, particularly people like me. And I was thinking about this phrase that we use, particularly this weekend with these chilling and damp days. These outdoorsy people might say, there's no bad weather, only inappropriate clothing. I'm not sure. But I agree that obviously it's not the sky's fault that it's cold and raining and that I'm shivering. I should probably be wearing something other than shorts and flip-flops. Right? So with the break in the rain, I like to get out and enjoy the cool air and the composting leaves. But I knew that I would want my warm sweater, my waterproof boots, probably long johns because it is a whole 50 degrees. And a way to get out of the rain just in case it starts up again. And it helps that we live in a world now where we can easily look up what to reasonably expect with the weather. Even as we know that it may not be exact, and certain climates and situations mean that things can change faster or more drastically than others. Or maybe that's just a nuance of weather that we grow to know more over time. The other version of this phrase that I got from growing up in high school Boy Scouts is the motto, be prepared. It's a value that I can get behind. But then when I hear about people preparing by keeping bunkers full of shelf-stable inventory, I wonder if I really believe in be prepared in all ways, at all times, all places, in the same way. So I'm always torn between overpacking and simplicity. I love both at different times. When I travel, when I'm camping, even just my everyday going about life, running errands, I don't like carrying arms full of totes from place to place. So how do I eliminate it down just to what I need? And also, at the same time, I know it's not likely that I'll stop by that park on the way home, but I'll pack my new book of poetry and maybe a snack and a picnic blanket, just in case. I like having options. And maybe it'll motivate me to make space for those things in my life. I have grown entire vegetable gardens in the hope that it will motivate me to make good choices about my life. But apparently there is literally nothing that can motivate me to eat Brussels sprouts. I've tried all the things. It's just not God's will for me. I like the way that simplicity can make me feel free. And also forces me into the creativity of using what's easily available. I think there's holiness in that. There's a confidence and a liberation that comes from knowing that I am capable of living in that kind of space. And packing light can also make moving around a little bit more comfortable if you ever got off an airplane in a new city, having less can be more. But I also like the comfort of knowing that I'll have what I need without the mental or physical strain or stress. And past experiences have taught me the weight of anxiety from unanticipated hurdles. So there's another kind of freedom in knowing that I packed my sturdy shoes as well. I like having a range of choices that comes from having more than the bare minimum. And I can still recognize a fear of missing out on something because I had failed to have some particular thing lined up and in hand. I think about what I want on and around my table in preparation for feasting and celebration. Perhaps with loved ones, even for sharing a table fraught with tension, I'm weighing what feels right. Do I want to cook enough that we all feel satisfied, but aren't burdened by leftovers for days? And eventually waste, that doesn't feel good. Or do I want to be absolutely sure that there's more than enough if someone decides to bring an extra friend or two, or to have enough for at least a couple days sandwiches to get me through how much I won't want to cook later? And it also ensures that I get to taste all of the different things that we really want to. Do I spend time and energy and resources draping the house in garlands of pine cones and cinnamon? Do I put in the phone calls and text messages and care for myself and or others to smooth a relational runway? Perhaps use some of those same things to rest, so that I can be refreshed and perhaps more generous of myself in the time that I have. I feel like my mind is often running some kind of cost-benefit analysis for carrying extra lamp oil. With less baggage comes often more agility, more spontaneity. You can be lighter in every step. And in some cases, it seems the more responsible thing to do. But having more than what you imagine you may immediately need may also mean you are more agile across a longer span of time as circumstances inevitably change. I suppose it's a matter of perspective at times. I wonder how we come to see things as we do. I wonder how we come to lean toward particular choices or ways of being. I wonder if we might withdraw the assignment of good and bad to wise and foolish. Perhaps more appropriately consider what is at work in the movement of time. Perhaps the call is less about assimilating to endure at all costs, but in blessing the time that we may find ourselves in. It seems to me that the kind of readiness that will make us most attuned to an unfolding of God's kingdom before us is less about what supplies we have gathered as much as our disposition to be ones that look for God's arrival, to be more than a passing moment, and rather a lingering transformation. More than a perfunctory entrance, the great host of the feast arrives as they arrive, perhaps drawing slowly over this and that, as the lamplight gathers and wanes, and still continues to be enough to swing wide the doors of feasting and celebration. This parable seems to reiterate that the kingdom of heaven is not a flash in the pan, a quick fix, or a cosmic band-aid. It is a full and complete reconciliation of all things. I wonder about the pain that might have been the source of wisdom, that taught those young men to prepare for delay. I wonder what moments shaped them to anticipate for their hopes to take a bit longer than reason might suggest. I wonder if it is not only their own experiences and stories, but those of their elders shared with them. Perhaps the stories their mothers told. I think one of the most haunting verses in all of Scriptures are the words of the women at the tomb in the Gospel of Luke as they wait in that moment, which is still for them an experience of God's absence, and they say, "But we had hoped that they would be the one. We had hoped that this time would be the time." I wonder if this parable points toward an understanding of heaven as something that may upset our easiest expectations, but bless our deepest hurts. Perhaps this parable is about the likeness of heaven, and also another way of saying what we heard last week from the Beatitudes. Maybe this is another way of God proclaiming, "Blessed are those who have had to wait, who have sat in uncertainty before, and enough to know it doesn't always go your way. Blessed are those who have had to put off hopes for this reason or that. Blessed are those who have known such roughshod and yet still keep an eye out. Blessed are you when you aren't sure whether you should hurry or settle in for the long haul, when you hope for the best but prepare for the worst. For you will also know the goodness of feasting and joy without any more worry. It's the kind of blessing you can't ever truly be prepared for. And sometimes, even when you know it is promised to arrive, it surprises you and sweeps you up when it does. Perhaps the kingdom of God is like this, meeting us in the place of our deepest hope and leftover fear. A blessing of wisdom that is layered and complex and scarred, a blessing of sometimes ragged nobility, of not being sure, of showing up and sticking around. Perhaps this is where and when God's presence is most apparent and God's arrival most pressing. In the places of people we could all too easily miss if we take them for granted. Perhaps at this table we gather around today, in this place, among these people, we might know a foretaste of such a wedding feast. Perhaps in the lingering way that we go from here, we might be transformed, molecule by molecule, with the rest of the world, in the knowing of goodness that surprises us. Amen.